Greetings, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to the Sports Fellowship of Fans. Another exciting weekend of sports has gone behind us. We've seen the Milwaukee-Phoenix series get a little tighter. Milwaukee pulled out a game at home, which was a very impressive performance on their part, especially by Giannis Antetokounmpo. We'll talk about that. The huge trilogy, third fight between Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, ended with a brutal injury to Conor McGregor. That's something we could talk about. But I think since this is All-Star Week for the MLB, I really want to talk about baseball a little bit. I've kind of made references to the amazing performances that we've seen thus far, and they have been amazing. Shohei Ohtani is doing something we've never seen, not in my lifetime, and hasn't happened really since Babe Ruth in Major League Baseball. For a starting pitcher to be an all-star caliber pitcher and also to be leading the major leagues in home runs is unheard of. He's stealing bases. He's hitting 440-foot shots. And he's on the mound pitching to a 2.5 ERA, which in the American League is pretty phenomenal. But there's very little said about Shohei Ohtani. Jacob deGrom for the Mets is having a first half like, again, we haven't seen probably in 40, 45 years. You'd have to go back to Bob Gibson to see this kind of performance over this length of time from a starting pitcher. Pitcher just yesterday tied a record by striking out the first 9 batters of a game. We saw Aaron Nola for Philadelphia tie the modern record by striking out 10 consecutive batters during the game. So there's so much that could be discussed in MLB, yet you hear very little about any of it. And so what it made me want to ask today and throw out to the fellowship is, what happened to baseball? Where did baseball go? When I was younger, and I'm a huge basketball guy. I mean, I grew up loving everything about basketball. I loved high school. I loved college. Of course, the NBA, ABA, because I'm that old. I just loved basketball, but my first love athletically was Major League Baseball. I knew every player on every team. I could mimic the batting stance of every player on every team. I knew their lineups front to back. I could mimic the motions of every pitcher, starters and relievers. I knew the stats. I used to get the Sunday paper and I would go down the stats to see who the leading batter was and who was leading in home runs and RBIs. And this was all taking place when we had no internet. In the beginning, there was no cable, but baseball was such a passion. It was the games on TV. It was playing it in the street. It was being a part of Little League. It was collecting baseball cards. And baseball was everything. The Tuesday night baseball game on NBC with Joe Garagiola. The Saturday afternoon baseball. This was before Sunday night baseball was a thing on ESPN. You just watched as much baseball as we could take in. And I loved baseball. And we've seen over time just the lack of interest in baseball across the board. I know that in some areas, some parts of the country, it's still a big deal. It's really, really kind of lost its stranglehold on being the great American pastime. I think people would probably argue right now that the NFL has replaced MLB as the sport that cannot be missed. And even seeing the coverage right now for the NBA and the MLB, I think that baseball is closer to hockey than it is to football and basketball right now. So again, the question is, where did baseball go? Was it that the other sports, as cable television and ESPN grew, the era of the highlight started to push the action sports more towards the front of the line and kind of took baseball a little bit to the back? Is it the fact that baseball, outside of controversies, really just did not draw a lot of attention? When you had the big home run race, first you had a big work stoppage. Then the home run race was bringing it back with McGuire and Sosa, and you had Cal Ripken with the consecutive game streak. And then right after that, you had the steroid controversy. And then we got into sign stealing not too long ago. And now we're into sticky substances and spin rate. And it's just there always seems to be something going wrong in baseball. And that seems to be the only time it really gets attention. Last night was round one of the MLB draft. So these amazing young college and high school stars that are one day going to be stars in the MLB were getting picked last night. And I don't know anybody who can name four of them who's not like an avid follower of baseball to the degree that they go online and research this stuff. Now, I can name 20 NBA prospects, including some who are not even from the United States. But these amazing players that will be stars in our cities very soon, very little coverage. They're having the draft in the middle of the season. Is that even a good idea? I don't know when else they would be able to do it, because if they wait until the MLB season is over, these students are now back in school. And I don't know if you want high school and college students being drafted while they're in class, or have them not start school waiting to find out where they're going to be drafted, which would not give them the opportunity to make the decision whether to accept the draft selection or to go to college or pursue a scholarship opportunity. So I don't know how they would fix that, but something has happened to baseball that has caused it to slide in popularity. The dynamic stars that we were accustomed to seeing aren't being promoted. Stephen A. Smith mentioned that one of the issues is having such a generational talent like Shohei Ohtani, whose first language isn't English. So it's hard for the American media to give Shohei a lot of coverage, because Shohei isn't available to answer the questions, to show his personality, to kind of be brought in as a star. Now, I don't know if that's really a thing, if that should be a thing, or if it's just an observation that he notices. But we're all looking at baseball, a sport that was a huge part of our youth, and we're wondering, where did it go? The MLB All-Star Game was really a huge deal. Everybody in their own uniform, representing their team, representing your team at the All-Star Game. The home run contest, which is still a good deal. We were talking today about whether or not the home run derby was a more exciting event than the slam dunk contest. So we kind of went back and forth on that today. My son and I were talking about it. And there are some things about Major League Baseball that are still there, right? There's still great performances and better athletes playing, and we're seeing historic performances and great young players. Ronald Acuna Jr., who is one of the 2 or 3 best stars in the major leagues, runs into a wall and has a complete tear in his ACL, out for the year. Again, it's not a huge deal. If LeBron tore his ACL, huge deal. If Tom Brady tore his ACL, huge deal. We'd be talking about it, trying to figure out what are their teams going to do, what's the league going to do. Nobody's even asked how Atlanta's going to survive without Ronald Acuna Jr., or what it means for the National League East, or what it means for the National League pennant race, or any of that, because baseball has kind of lost its position in the hierarchy of American sports. So I'm going to ask you, brothers and sisters, I'm reaching out to the fellowship, because this is what we do. We talk about what's going on, and you're the ones with the information. You're the ones with the knowledge. So where has baseball gone? And will baseball ever really come back to the front of the line? Or is it forever going to be a regionalized, almost niche sport in our culture going forward? So, brothers and sisters, please jump on. Tell me what you think. Give me your opinion on baseball. You want to comment on Shohei Ohtani? You want to comment on what teams are doing what? You want to comment on the All-Star Game, the MLB draft, and why we don't even discuss it? We don't even talk about these young prospects. Or if you just want to give your input on where you believe Major League Baseball has disappeared to, we welcome your comments here to the Sports Fellowship of Fans. We always want to hear from our brothers and sisters. So please respond to the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and be a part of the fellowship, because this space was created so that we could have these conversations together. So enjoy the All-Star Weekend if you're going to watch MLB. Let's get ready for Game 4 if you're watching the NBA. And let's get into these conversations and talk about what's going on in sports. So we appreciate you. Can't wait to hear from you. Let's go.